truth, bring your laughter too. Every heart's a story, and every story matters.
Hello and welcome to my heart of the story. I know that the past couple of episodes, I have really been deep in some grief and some fear, which ultimately has really been about surrender. And I just find it very fitting for this stage in life. It's a wild ride. First of all, I really never thought I would make it to 47. I really didn't. I think maybe when I was young, I just didn't look so much into the future or could never even have imagined, getting to this place where I'm at in life. Where am I right now? I am navigating hormones. Starting back in about 2014 when we moved up here, I really started taking my health very seriously. So y'all remember, maybe not, when I was freaking making milkshakes and selling Visalis, and Dylan and I completely transformed our bodies. And I really started to begin to understand how important it was to fuel the body and move the body. So, and network marketing truly changed my life. It was in very subtle ways, though, because I don't think at the time I really ever, prior to network marketing, I did not know what self-help was necessarily. Manifestation, people like Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins. I had never really heard of anything like that. So when I got into Visalis and network marketing back in 2011, my whole world was opened up, because if you think about me as a kid growing up, that was not something that was really talked about. It was kind of like, these are the cards you were dealt, good luck. So when I was in my early 30s and I started to hear people speak like Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and talking about being the change that you want to see, the 5 people that you surround yourself with is what you will become. It really started to change things for me. There was a huge shift in perspective. And so, of course, I wanted to just scream it from the rooftops, because I was like, oh my God, do you guys know that this actually exists out there? And so then when I started to realize that in order to be successful, you have to be happy, what does being happy actually look like? So at this point, Dylan and I had been married for 6 years, something like that. We're navigating change. We've got 3 kids. We had 3 kids under 30. So boom, here we are. Just going about life with the programming that we had that came from the generation before us, that came from the generation before them. And he and I, neither of us knew about self-help. We didn't know what it meant to be empowered. We were just kind of chugging along. But when we started Visalis, and it sounds so crazy, but we started doing that, and we started to see the difference in the lives of the people around us just because of their beliefs. It was like, holy cow, there's actually really something to this. And so that really changed the trajectory of our life. And we moved off of the mountain. We moved down into Lincoln, California. And that's the first time Dylan and I had ever lived in, as a family, had ever lived in like the suburbs. And it was a beautiful experience, but he was depressed because he wasn't working at the time. And I was hustling, working MLMs. I was making good money that allowed us to live in this freaking crazy, beautiful house. Dylan and I have always been living the dream, because when you experience the kind of love that we've been fortunate to have for 21 years, you're just living the dream. But there were times when we were seriously just barely treading water. And so these stories that we had been told, and then suddenly it was like, oh, wow, there's actually something else out there. And it's okay to want to have more, and it's okay to want to be different and to do things differently than maybe the past generations before us had done. So when we moved to Oregon, I knew something needed to change for me. I was dealing with a lot of pain in my body prior to that. Having 2 kids back to back just wrecked my hormones. I was on some prescriptions for pain and for anxiety and probably some depression that was going on. So when we moved to Oregon, it was like, okay, I really want to start taking my health more seriously. I knew that I wanted to be more clear-headed. I knew that prescriptions weren't the way for me to go, because of having family members that had completely destroyed their lives and died, probably as a result of addiction, abusing their prescriptions. So, anyways, we get to Oregon and I completely just got off all of my prescriptions. I started to use essential oils and I, at the time, started using cannabis. It was starting to be acceptable to use it medicinally. My experience had always been recreationally. And so then when I really started focusing on using it medicinally, it really changed something for me. And so I was able to get off of those medications. The only way I could describe it was that everything in life was kind of going like this, which is totally normal. And I was just like this. And I was sacrificing and I was choosing what I thought was success, what I thought was getting us ahead was to just be constantly working all of the time, pouring myself into these network marketing companies and really missing out on some of the most formative, important years. Looking back on it now, I don't have regrets necessarily because I don't think it's healthy, but God, I missed a lot with my kids when they were really little. But Dylan, he was so solid. He was like Mr. Mom, and he just filled in that gap. And I was there, but I wasn't there. That's the only way I could describe it. My body was physically there, but I was not present with my family. So taking my health very seriously meant changing some of those stories that I had been telling about myself for so many years. And so I read this book by Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth, and it shifted everything for me. It just took everything I didn't ever have words for and just finally gave me words to describe what it would mean to live in a way that felt empowering, to live in a way that felt like presence, right? I was there, but I wasn't actually present. So what did it mean to be present with what was? To start to be present with my feelings, to be present with my children. And then I read another beautiful book, The Conscious Parent by Dr. Shafali, and realized that all my children really wanted was for me to love them, unconditionally love them, even when they were at their orneriest. And that's all we ever really truly want is to just seriously to be loved, even when we're being the orneriest. And so I just started reading these books and I started to realize how important it was what I was feeding myself. And I don't just mean what I was eating, but who I was spending my time with, what I was listening to, what I was watching. And we lived on this beautiful property where I was able to completely just disconnect, and not like in a bad way, but just disconnect. And we went on adventures together as a family, exploring the new place that we moved into. We went skinny dipping and bathing in the river back behind our house. Our kids were so little. And Brian, obviously, he was definitely older and that was not cool for him, but he loved his wild hippie savage parents. He definitely didn't participate in that. Me and Dylan really found ourselves and we really found another level of love inside of our relationship. We had a lot of things that came up and we had to talk about. You know, when you live in a community where everybody has known you your whole life, everybody knew your parents and your grandparents. I had this very large group of friends and me and Dylan were living a life together in Brownsville with these kids and raising them, but we weren't really living together because we had so many other people. So he would go and he would vent to his best friend. I would go and vent to my best friend, but we weren't talking to one another. And when we moved to Oregon, we had no choice but to actually start really talking to one another. And so our family became this really incredible, tight-knit, close kind of family. So we were in the dirt and we were creating and we had projects and we were exploring this new cool place that we lived in. And so that became the priority. And so we started prioritizing getting rid of toxins in our home, getting rid of toxins, in the body, eating cleaner. Um, it's just like those little things that you realize, these more natural ways. It just really nourished us in this incredible way. And like I said, that was in 2010. MLM comes into my life, self-help comes into my life. I start to see that there is a different way to live, that you don't have to inherit or be like everybody else in your family. And, for a long time, I think that when we moved away, people really from my hometown couldn't necessarily understand why we would want to leave something like that. But I think Dylan and I recognized that in order for us to change, that we needed a different environment. And so, of course, the opportunity presented itself for us to move. And so, I just made radical changes. Like we all just made radical changes. And so, anyways, that was really where that foundation was built. And I remember when we first got here, again, coming from a small town where everybody knows your name and everybody knows your family, everybody knows your story. When we landed here, it was like the anonymity that came. I could reinvent myself completely. And I feel like I did. I really did reinvent myself. And it took many years for me to get comfortable with that. But it was so exhilarating to be in a town where nobody knew your story, nobody knew anything about you. And I loved that part of it. I have had so many incredible experiences with healing the body through a holistic approach. That means from growing my own herbs and making my own tinctures that support my body, to drinking herbal infusions, to yoga and breath work. We have so much information. We can really change our lives, change our trajectory by simply speaking differently about ourselves and speaking differently about our circumstance and telling our stories in a new way that helps us to not feel so attached to that, but helps us to see it for good, to see it, even if it was bad. I mean, in my own life, there's a lot of bad shit that happened in my life. There's a lot of things that I'm currently seeking some talk therapy for because I've done a lot of work, and yet somatically inside of my body, there's still some fucking trauma there. And I want to do everything in my power to rid myself of that, mostly because I want to have a regulated nervous system, because I've been living with a dysregulated nervous system for so long that my adrenals were tanked. They're on the mend, right? Because I'm learning how to relax. I'm learning how to say no. I'm learning how to honor my rhythms of my body as a 47-year-old woman. I want my body to be regulated, to have my fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response to be natural in the moment, but to like shake that off and let it go when the moment has passed and not carrying it forward. So I'm seeking that. This is new to me. I really have been pretty arrogant in my life in thinking that nobody could actually really help me. And so, anyways, I'm just sharing that. I'm just sharing where I'm at in life, my journey, what it feels like to just be me, to have to experience things for myself. I was feeling in that very deep, dark place at the very beginning of this year where I wasn't really recognizing myself and I wasn't finding joy in the things that I used to find joy in. I have so many tools. Oh my God, I have so many tools. And I have so many allies. I have so many people that truly want to be there for me, to listen and to hold space for, and to witness me in my process. I'm learning the difference between kind of this isolation for the sake of getting to a deeper place for myself, and then also reaching out to people when it's necessary so that I'm not going through these things alone. And assembling a team of people, whether that be practitioners or ally friendships, not doing this alone. We weren't meant to do this alone. I can be a lone wolf. I know that isolation and silence and aloneness is something that I actually really crave and really love. It's why I have this she shed, is because that's where I do my best, my best processing. So yeah, I am assembling a team. I'm asking for help. I'm actually going outside of my comfort zone to see if there is something out there that might help me to get this adrenal fatigue, under control, because I am an aging woman. And so at 47 years old, hormones are changing. I've been on my soapbox about HRT, and guess what? I'm doing it because I got to a point where like I said, deep, dark place. And I had to start evaluating my life and looking at it and going, okay, am I going to be that stubborn to sit on that soapbox and die there? I had to get to the point to where I knew I needed something. And the only way to figure out whether it was for me or not was to give it a shot. And I'll be honest with you, I'm about 2 months in on bioidentical hormones, testosterone specifically, because when your adrenals are tanked, that's the first thing that's the first thing that is affected. So, yeah, I'm 2 months in, and I feel really confident that I advocated for myself well, and I'm not just slapping that on like a Band-Aid. I am doing a lot of things to help that. So that's only one piece of the puzzle for me. It's silly, but rebounding and getting that lymphatic system moving and the supplements that I take and getting my protein. There is a whole approach to healing. And that foundation for me, again, like I said, it was laid when we moved here and I started getting off prescriptions and I started to just see that there's so much more out there. No matter where you are in life, and I say this for myself, no matter where I've been or what I think I would never do that, or, well, that's just not for me. I'm learning more and more in my age that I might not use those sentences, those phrases anymore, because until you are in it, like I said, deep, dark place, really scary, slippery slope, not recognizing myself, I wasn't ready to just roll over and accept that that's, what was normal for a woman my age. So I did a lot of research to start advocating for myself. So I don't freaking have a clue whatsoever if this podcast makes any sense, because shit, that's just me. That might just be my brain. Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, being part of my story, being part of this journey with me as I just unpack and just become, this braver version of myself. And hopefully it helps. I mean, even if it's just you take one little piece of this. So anyways, thank you all for being here. I love you. Thanks for being part of my story. And thanks again for continuing to tune in.
Come on in, pull up a chair. Life gets real, stories get shared. Truth and laughter side by side. Every heart comes alive.